Good morning, my canny, clever, quick-witted patriots. You know, unless you know what the problem is, you can't fix it. And in order to get at this problem, you need good information. Well, you're certainly not going to find it at the New York Times. Just look at this headline. After a year of protests, Portland is ready to move on. But where? Now, a better headline would be, after a year of riots, Portland wants to know, how do we end them? That's how to identify the problem. But let's go on with this story for a little bit. Defund the police? City leaders in Portland tried it. A unit in the Fire and Rescue Bureau, one of the first of its kind in a major city, began this year taking some 911 calls about people in crisis, especially those who are homeless. You notice the picture they show, though. Rioters, Antifa, in full riot gear, with shields, umbrellas, the proverbial fire, smoke. You can't have all this without an Antifa riot in Portland. Let's go on. Instead of police officers with flashing red lights and guns, a paramedic and a social worker would drive up offering water, a high-protein snack, and always and especially conversation, aiming to diffuse a situation that could otherwise lead to confrontation and violence. No power to arrest, no coercion. Now, underneath this paragraph, it shows more Antifa violence. The Antifa tagged on that sign looks like it was party headquarters for Oregon, and a smashed up window. How appropriate. Even Antifa can't stand the smell of Democrats. Let's go on just a little bit more. Having someone show up and offer you goods rather than run you off is different, and people respond to it. It softens the mood, said Tremaine Clayton, a burly, tattooed veteran of 20 years at the Fire and Rescue Bureau who helps run the program. But, there's always a but, this spring, just as the project was preparing for a major rollout into more neighborhoods, there was a plot twist. The new policing alternative was itself mostly defunded. The city decided on a go-slow approach, and the promised $4.8 million expansion evaporated. So the city councilman saw the program wasn't working and pulled the purse strings. Let's take another look at Portland. This from the Washington Examiner. Over 24 suspected Antifa rioters charged after enforcement shift from Portland District Attorney. Oh my! Let's go on. Over 24 suspected Antifa rioters have been charged in Portland over the last 2 weeks on charges ranging from assault to using explosives. Do you see the difference in wording here? They call these thugs in Portland rioters. They correctly depict exactly what they are. These people have set trash cans on fire, tagged buildings, broken windows, destroyed property, even burned buildings. In no way were these protests. These were rioters. And, well, looks like there's a new sheriff in town. Let's go on a little bit. Authorities have made arrests and filed charges against several suspected Portland Antifa rioters. Again, that word rioters. I love how they're using it correctly instead of protesters. It does my heart good. Including the rearrest of 24-year-old Malik Fard Muhammad. Muhammad, who was previously extradited to Oregon after being indicted on 2 counts of attempted aggravated murder, 2 counts of attempted first-degree murder, 4 counts of felony riot, 2 counts of unlawful manufacturing of an explosive device, unlawful possession of a firearm, and possession of a loaded firearm in public, was arrested again after the Antifa-linked Portland Freedom Fund paid $212,500 in bail following his last arrest. Just last year, Portland had no intention of charging this man, but something's changed. Let's go on a little bit more. The charges represent a drastic shift from District Attorney Mike Schmidt, who had previously dropped 90% of protest, riot-related charges. Schmidt struck a sympathetic tone with the protest shortly after taking office last year, arguing that at previous points in American history, it took some property damage to bring meaningful change. Schmidt has smelled the changing winds. Look at this very last sentence of this story. A spokesperson insists Schmidt has continuously condemned property damage and violence. Yeah, Schmidt really isn't a hero here, but there is one in Portland who is. Let's go to one final story. The Oregonian. Andy No says he was chased, assaulted amid Portland protest. Let's read on just a little bit. Andy Ngo said Wednesday he was the man chased and assaulted last week at a Portland protest. Read riot. Ngo, a popular right-wing writer. Wow. You expect the Oregonian to have a few lies in a sentence, but this many? Every single word? For those few who don't know it, Andy No is gay. He's Vietnamese. That makes him a minority. And he's not just a writer, he's a journalist. He was on the ground reporting this latest Portland riot when he was chased down, beaten up, severely injured by these Antifa thugs. Most people who claim to be journalists are merely writers or talking heads. Andy Ngo actually tries to get at the root of every story. He goes on the ground. He reports facts, not opinions. That's what makes him most dangerous to Antifa and BLM.